deserve the power you were given.
Hello, I'm David from HeroIndex.net, and I was lucky enough this week to secure an access code to the beta of Destiny 2, obviously one of the biggest games this year. And in this video, I'll just be going through my impressions of the opening mission, the strike, and the two Crucible modes, as in multiplayer, that this beta has given us access to, and then I'll do a quick roundup of my thoughts and hopes for the full release this September.
Amanda, we're headed topside. Amanda! Anyone?
So once I got through some interminable loading screens full of error messages telling me that I needed to download files from servers or whatever, I finally got to pick my class. I went with Hunter to begin with, and you get plunged straight into the opening mission with a cutscene featuring Cayde and co in the tower monitoring a strange situation happening outside before it all goes to shit in there, and then you fly in your ship and land at the tower and basically have to begin trying to take it back from the Cabal, who are the main bad this time by the looks of it. And yeah, the first impression of that is that they've given it a fresh lick of paint. It certainly looks a lot better than the old Destiny. There's a lot more atmospheric effects. We get to see rain and so forth at one point. And the enemies, well, it's still the same old Cabal, and at least their heads still pop off in a satisfying manner if you hit them in the sweet spot. And they are a little bit smarter in how they attack you and how they preserve themselves, but it's not too much more advanced from what we saw in the original. You make your way through the tower in various states of destruction and looking initially to save the speaker, but once he's not there, then you have to try and make your way off the tower before things get even worse, and then you get picked up by Amanda and you get flown off to a Cabal ship to try and take that down. It's pretty much what we've seen before from Destiny. I've got to admit, it's not a gentle introduction. If you've not played Destiny in a while, like myself, I would have liked some command prompts. I trust they're going to be put in to the full game, but it was faster, more frenetic. Level design was more varied than what we've seen before, and overall it was a nice reintroduction to the series. And at the end of it, you get faced with the new big bad. I think Garl is his name, and then he just kicks you off a ledge, and then you're thrown into the main menu.
I hope this is safe. The Cabal don't need to stick the landing. We do.
So the strike, which is called the Inverted Spire, was the part of this beta I was most looking forward to, and therefore it's the part that also disappointed me the most. The strikes, traditionally in Destiny, are kind of generally what we would see in the campaign missions, but you have to team up with other players, whether they're your friends or matchmaking or whatever. The routine is you start off at point A, you've got to go to point B, shoot some enemies along the way, and then you've got to move to point C, shoot some more enemies until you get to like point F, and then you get some serious boss to take down. And that was exactly the same recipe we've got here. I was hoping that maybe some more of the team-focused objectives that we see in the Destiny raids had filtered down into the strikes to make them more of a bridge between the campaign and, the actual endgame PvE content. But that doesn't seem to be evident from what we've seen in this beta. Hopefully, more strikes within the game, as there always are several, will offer a little bit more variation. There was one bit where you have to jump around some big turbine digger-like machine, and that was a bit different. That was something I don't think we'd seen in the strikes before. But yeah, overall, a little bit ordinary, I felt. It was fun enough. The big boss was certainly something to be reckoned with. He had a few insta-kill moves that if you weren't paying attention could get you quite easily. But other than that, I do hope that we're going to see strikes with some more variation and some more team-focused objectives within the full game.
Countdown.
And finally, we come to the two multiplayer modes. You get a choice of either low-intensity multiplayer or high-intensity multiplayer, both of which take place in the Crucible. I'm not sure how that's still standing after the attack, but it's still there. And the low-intensity is the classic control game mode that we've come to know and probably get quite bored of in Destiny. But it is now 4v4, which I must admit feels like the optimum number of team members for Destiny, given its pace. And it's still got the same problem of when you go in with a team of strangers that people seem more concerned with their KD ratio than they do with actually securing zones, and it can become a bit messy. And I still suck at that particular game mode, but the other game mode, the high intensity one, is something that's new to the Destiny series, is called Countdown, and that's more reminiscent of Valve's Counter-Strike than what we've seen in Destiny before. Basically, you've got two teams and there's a set of charges which must be charged by one team or stopped being charged by another team. And yeah, it was quite satisfying. People generally did rally to the cause and see what the objective was rather than worrying about just shooting other opponents. But it did add another element to it in that it was reminiscent of the Trials of Osiris, as in when you go down, you can't respawn. Only your teammates can revive you after a set amount of time, and you can win the match simply by just eliminating the other team rather than actually completing the objective. So it did make that game mode feel multifaceted in that there'd be a lot more room for a lot more strategies as how to approach that, and it overall was a very, very satisfying experience.
All right, Guardian. Time to kick 'em where it hurts.
There are a few other changes to the classic Destiny formula. There is now more variation in the amount of powers you can combine, and there's been some changes to loadouts. Your primary and secondary weapons are now virtually interchangeable, though they are assigned to those particular roles, but shotguns and sniper rifles, it seems, have been relegated into heavy weapons only. So those that have spent years practicing quickscoping with sniper rifles in multiplayer are probably going to be a little bit frustrated by that decision. But overall, it made changing between weapons feel a lot more fluid. Speaking of which, it is becoming clear that Destiny as an out-and-out shooter is becoming a little bit dated now, with the likes of Titanfall 2 and the Doom reboot seemingly adding a lot more fluidity. Destiny 2 feels a little bit staid in comparison. I do have to wonder if they have changed things enough, particularly for players who have stuck with the game through thick and thin over the last 3 years, who will have their progress wiped at the beginning of Destiny 2. They won't be able to carry anything over from the original Destiny. Will there be enough change here to justify this as a whole new game rather than just another expansion? Obviously, from Bungie's point of view, a new expansion at this stage is probably not going to bring in any new users. I think this is as much a soft reboot as it is a sequel. It's certainly looking to probably snare users that who haven't played Destiny before or who quite rightly got bored and frustrated with the very original release that was so devoid of content and much of what we were promised. I think this is probably a very good time for them to jump in to Destiny, as everyone will have to start from scratch again. You know, veteran players will obviously have a lot of advantages in terms of their experience with the game, but their characters will be on the same level as everyone else, at least at the beginning anyway. I think what most people are hoping for in Destiny 2 is a massive improvement in terms of the storytelling, which was horrendous in the original Destiny, and it made some improvements in the expansions, but nothing to write home about. Bungie have promised us there's going to be too much story, which I don't see that necessarily as a positive thing, because I think too much story is possibly just as bad as not enough story. But I also just think that within the structure of Destiny, it's a game that relies so much on grinding and repetition of various missions and strikes that have to be played under different conditions. Then I don't think it's possible to tell a focused, compelling narrative within that structure, but at least it could do with have some decent dialogue, be a bit more cohesive, and actually feel like you're having more of an impact. But of course, the main drive of Destiny is getting the best gear, and the rarest gear for that matter, and it's quite interesting playing Destiny in a situation where that gear is going to be taken away from you very soon, because once the beta closes, none of our progress is going to carry over into the main game in September, and that does tend to shine quite a harsh light on the gameplay itself, which for me, in the couple of hours I've spent with the beta, already starts to feel repetitive, that we're getting set to be another grindathon so we can get the best gear, either to compete in the Crucible or to use, obviously, in the rather excellent, admittedly, endgame content of the raids, which will hopefully be just as good as they've been in the past in Destiny 2. However, I'll be hoping for more variation and purpose to the game overall when Destiny 2 finally releases in September this year. For more reviews and views like these, be sure to visit heroindex.net and of course, hit the like and subscribe.